Yay! So many book lovers have already subscribed to this channel. Thank you so much. I so much appreciate it. It is awesome, and I cannot wait to talk about books with you guys, which I'm going to be doing a lot right now. At the end of every month, I'm going to do these wrap-up / favorites videos. During the month, if I talk about a book, if I summarize it, or if I just talk about a quote of the book, I'm always going to re-summarize all the books that I've read during the month during this video. After I'm done with the book, I always review it on GoodReads. So I'll put all the ones for this month in this description bar. Towards the end of the video, I will tell you what my favorite book was, and I will also tell you a bunch of my favorites from this month. Those will include my Netflix view of the month, my favorite beverage to read with this month, mug of the month — I collect novelty mugs if you do not know — my favorite product to relieve stress with during the month, and my favorite song of the month. These are just things that I know will change throughout every month, so these will be consistently in every favorites video, but maybe I'll add some more favorites during the other months, I'm not sure yet. These are the ones I'm gonna start out with. If you don't want to hear any of the summaries of these books, because I know that this will be a very lengthy video, I will have an annotation constantly here saying if you want to just watch the favorites, you can skip to this part of the video, because I know they'll be lengthy, and yeah, I don't want to make you go through all that if you don't want to. That is it. Let's get started with the summaries. The first book that I read was Dog by Daniel Pennick. Can't even. I don't even want to relive this. My heart is hurting right now just because I picked up this book. It's hurting. This book was written in French and then translated. For some reason, French books always kill me. They're always so wonderful, and they always just break my heart as well, but they're so wonderful. This is the reason I want to one day study abroad and just read French literature all day. So this book, Dog, is in a dog's perspective. Go figure. It's written very intellectually. The main character, Dog, was the runt of his litter, and he was very ugly, so the humans decided that they were going to drown him at birth. Obviously, he didn't die in the beginning, and he goes through a ton of hardships which you go through with him. This book will just break your heart in half. But even though his life gets harder and harder, he still moves on. This whole story is just about how life gets harder and harder, and yet you can still go through it. You could still make it through the hard points, and eventually things will get better. And even in your worst times, you can always think of things to distract you. Life is never 100% terrible, which is what this book shows us, and it's incredible, and you can finish it in a day, and it's so good, and I highly recommend it. It has a happy ending, and no book has made me this emotional since The Little Prince. These French writers are just so good at tearing out your heartstrings. I gave this book a 5-star rating. Crazy, incredible, wonderful, lovely. Black-nosed taught Dog that no matter how careful you are, no one is safe from accidents, and no matter how happy you are, no one is safe from unhappiness. It works the other way around too, of course. The next thing that I read was The Fever, which isn't necessarily a book, it's just a short work. It was very thought-provoking. This was about a man that came from a well-off family, and he always said that life should be celebrated. It was repeated many times in the book. He didn't think that anything was wrong in the world, and he decided to go to a poor country to go on vacation because he thought, hey, I could afford the best hotel here, and I could afford to indulge in the richest of delicacies. Life is going to be grand. And then he witnessed terrible things, like maids who starved to death and men who got sent to the electric chair, and he heard people being hung from distances. He heard their awful death cries. He came back home, and life was not the same for him. He was numb inside and out, and he was like, I probably should go back to this poor country because life is not making sense here anymore. His life just turned into this awful spiral, and this work is really all about how unfairly the rich and the poor differ. They're completely getting underpaid, and nothing is being done about it, and their lives are tragic, and compared to this man's life who was like, this should always be celebrated, nothing is wrong with life, because his life was fine, and yet everyone else's life was so horrible around him, and he didn't even see it. Very thought-provoking. I pretty much told you the entire story, but it's really worth reading because there's just so many things that I underlined and bracketed, and everything was really well written. I gave it 4 stars. I would have liked to see more. I guess that's why I gave it 4 stars. I don't know. Because Jesus Christ, you know we wanted to be happy. We wanted our lives to be absolutely great. We were looking forward so long to some wonderful night in some wonderful hotel, some wonderful breakfast set out on a tray. We were looking forward like panting dogs slobbering on the rug. How we would delight the ones we loved with our kisses in bed. How we would delight our parents with our great accomplishments. How we would delight our children with toys and surprises. But it was all wrong. It was never really right. The hotel, the breakfast, what happened in bed, our parents, our children, and so yes, we needed solace. We needed consolation. We need food, nice food. We need nice things to wear. We need beautiful paintings, movies, plays, drives in the country, bottles of wine, but there's never enough solace, never enough consolation. And that is how the world works today, and that is why this is wonderful. The third book I read is This Is Where I Leave You by Jonathan Tropper, and it is not the last thing that I will read by him. His writing style was totally my taste. This was all about a dysfunctional family who hadn't seen each other for years and was reunited at their father's funeral. They had to stay in their childhood house together for 7 days while they sat Shiva and had to just sit down in their chairs and hang out with each other for 7 days. And the things that happened in this book. The main character, whose name was Judd, his wife cheated on him with his boss. The fact that he had that to deal with, along with the many, many stresses that his family created. It was insane. Expect the unexpected with this book. You cannot predict anything. Everything was crazy. I find it so hard not to spoil anything with this. But the storyline was very, very easy to follow, and each character had their own sort of story, which I thought was really nice. And each chapter was filled with little anecdotes, and each anecdote had that little end, that little tweak that made it absolutely perfect. And I absolutely recommend this book, and I cannot wait to read more of his books. I want to read The Book of Joe and One Last Thing Before I Go. Those sounded like two really good books from him, which I'm very excited to read. I gave it 5 stars. I found nothing wrong with it. I did not see one thing wrong with this book. It was fantastic. You think you have all the time in the world, and then your father dies. You think you're happily married, and then your wife fucks your boss. You think your brother is an asshole, and then you discover that it's been you all along. If nothing else, it's been educational. This book has adult themes, by the way. I have to remember to mention the books that do have adult themes because I know that I have younger viewers. I'm not against you reading any adult books. I just want to tell you before you go marching in thinking something differently. Oh my god! The next book that I read was 50 Shades of Grey. I have to look at my review for this on GoodReads because there was so many things that I had to say that were wrong about this book. So many things. Let me say that I know that there was a lot of negative feed around this book, and I did not judge it from the start. My best friend actually loved this book, and she lent it to me. This is her book. I'm very glad that I didn't spend my own money on it. I did not judge it from the start. I gave it an open mind, and it just blew my mind, but in the wrong way. I feel like this book is selling sex to little children, and it makes me very uncomfortable. It's written like a young adult book. It's written for 13 and 14-year-olds, and yet it's an erotic romance for a mature audience, is what it says on the back. Anastasia is the main character's name, Anastasia Steele. She uses words like holy cow and crap and behind instead of ass, and down there for, you know, her down there parts. These are the actual words in an erotic novel. A so-called erotic novel. Anastasia Steele is this really, really whiny, uncomfortable person that makes me uncomfortable because she's doing all these, she's being peer pressured into doing things, and she's saying yes even though she knows that it's wrong, and the entire time she's saying, this is wrong, I shouldn't be doing this, but oh, I'm saying yes anyway. And I'm very scared for young people that are reading this and thinking that it's this beautiful, like, sick fantasy that they're going to live out one day. No! You should not be thinking that. This is not the right novel to be having a fantasy over. It's not right at all. It made me so uncomfortable the entire time. I did not like it at all. Nothing was consensual. It was a really bad story. And not only was it a bad story, it was just horribly written, and I didn't like one bit of it, and I'm just gonna keep talking about this so negatively, and it makes me uncomfortable to talk about it because I hated it so much. If you want to see my review, I made a very lengthy review about it on GoodReads, talking about exactly why I hated it, because this seems very all over the place. I hated it, I hated it, I hated it, it's not even worth quoting, I hated it. I gave it 1 star. The last book I've read, I just finished before filming this actually, and it is Damned by Chuck Palahniuk. I just told you guys about this book. It is about Madison. She finds herself in hell. She doesn't know why she's there. I found out why she's there, and it's just what I would expect from Chuck Palahniuk, and I love his books. I find myself wanting to defend him because a lot of people on GoodReads said that this was such an awful book and shock factor is all he's looking for now, which I don't think it's true at all, and I still love him so much. I haven't even written my review yet, but it'll probably be up by the time that I'm done filming this, but I have to look through my notes so I can see what to tell you guys about this wonderful novel. Something that I really liked about this book was it was written sort of like a child's book, sort of like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. When traveling through hell, they talked about the Great Plains of Broken Glass, the swamp of partial birth abortions, great ocean of wasted sperm, sea of insects. It really made me feel like it was Willy Wonka-esque, except for in hell and so much weirder. He captured a 13-year-old girl's thoughts perfectly for a middle-aged man. Perfectly. She's incredibly hopeful. She wants everyone to like her. And so experimental as any 13-year-old girl is. She does everything that she thinks shouldn't be done. Her death was disturbing, yet very helpless. You can't help but feeling so sorry for this life that is leaving in the book. This is when he described how she died. Like, it's very, you feel so sad for her, and yet it's a very, very disturbing scene. I remember thinking the same thing in Choke when his mother dies. Eventually she turned hell into some place that is pleasant enough for her not to want to leave. I thought it was a very well-written book by Chuck Palahniuk. It seems like it's going to go in the way of a sequel. I hope that it does. I would read it. I gave this book a 4. Not my absolute favorite by my favorite author, but still a really good book. I always underline everything of Chuck Palahniuk, so it's hard for me to even pick a quote to quote right now. There's one line that is very much repeated in this novel, and it is, "What makes Earth feel like hell is our expectation that it should feel like heaven." Holler! Summaries are over. Those were the 5 books that I read this month. Favorites of this month. Who's excited? I'm excited. So my favorite book that I read this month, I gave 2 of them 5 stars, and my absolute favorite was Dog by Daniel Pennick. This is the one that I would just recommend the most to everybody. It's the one that everyone can relate to, and it's perfect. Pick it up. It's wonderful. It'll take a day to read, maybe even a few hours, and it'll break your heart. Please, please, please pick it out. My Netflix view of the month was, I've been watching Arrested Development. This month was when I just started watching it, and I can't stop. It's so funny. It's that whole dysfunctional family thing that gets to me all the time. It's so Little Miss Sunshine versus This Is Where I Leave You. So good. Love the crazy families. Favorite beverage to read with this month was tea. Peppermint tea. The way I see it, you can't go wrong with tea. Maybe it's because I don't really put much in it, but like a pack of Splenda or some honey, but you can't go wrong with tea. It's a tea bag and hot water. Coffee is more of like a delicacy for me. It has to be perfect, but tea, I can just make it really quick and then read a book and life is grand. Mug of the month. Like I said, I collect novelty mugs. That's just something that I do. Every time I see a beautiful mug, I'm like, I have to have you. I picked up 4 mugs this month. I'm embarrassing. They're cute though. This one is the least exciting one. It's just the mermaid's face. I got it at Fredonia though when I was visiting my best friend at college, so it means something to me. I love her. I miss her. This is an anniversary one from Starbucks, and this is the mermaid, but beautiful. She's so pretty on this mug. Look at how stunning she is. I have a girl crush on this mermaid. Anybody at my workplace can tell you I have such a girl crush on her. She's so pretty. The next one I bought just has this question mark and it has the blue in it, and I thought it was really interesting and I just liked it for the morning. Question mark in the morning. I thought nice. On my way back home from visiting my friend, it was just a really long way home and I was by myself. It was really like a difficult trek home, so when I finally got home to New York, I bought myself this New York City mug, which is really, really pretty, and it has all of New York City on it. It's feely, it has the feels, which is nice. My favorite product to relieve stress of this month. I love exfoliators. Cleaning my face. It feels so nice. Every time I'm bored, I'm just like, I'm gonna clean my face. Ocean Salt by Lush is by far my favorite exfoliator. It's the one that works the best. It's so, so good and it smells so good. And my favorite song of the month is Nerds by the Dodos. It's very good background music to the Dodos. They're really, really good to just like read and have them in the background. It's a very nice thing to listen to. Your ears will be happy. That is pretty much it. That is my life. This went on for so long and I hope that this won't be too long. I've been filming for 31 minutes. How this happened, I don't know. Okay, I'm overwhelmed. Bye! Thank you for subscribing and stuff. It meant a lot. I'm very happy. I will see you again soon. Goodbye!